Hello and welcome to Getting Gen Y to Buy, the webinar. This is Sarah Sladek and I am author of the white paper, Getting Gen Y to Buy, and I will be your host today. I'm also CEO of XYZ University. And XYZ University is a management consulting firm, and we specialize in helping organizations engage generations X, Y, and Z. Of course, today we're talking about Generation Y and how to get them to buy your products, your services, help them to be loyal, engaged consumers. And let's face it, this isn't as easy as engaging other generations as consumers, but there's a reason for that. There's also adequate reason that you should be concerned and that you should want to engage this young, very large emerging consumer base. So let's dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at what I would refer to as the end of consumerism as we know it. Now, that's a pretty bold statement, right? Why are we saying it's the end? Well, there are a few key reasons why we would consider this being the end of consumerism as we know it. And the first one is this: our economic shifts. For the past 13 years, we've been in the middle of an unstable economy. It started with the dot-com bubble burst, and it's continued on, and we are now recovering from the worst recession our country has seen in 70 years. Well, this influences our buying behaviors, and it has certainly influenced our youngest consumer base, the Gen Ys or millennials. It means that whether I'm spending $5 for something or $500, I'm demanding a greater return on my investment. And value matters more to me than ever before. And it especially matters to Generation Y, who happens to be the most debt-ridden generation. Think about this, that student debt now exceeds credit card debt in our nation. So the generation that's coming of age and moving into the most prominent consumer base is also one of the most broke consumer bases. The second reason that we say we're at the end of an era is due to rapidly changing technology. There has been more technology developed in the last 5 years than in the last 50 years. This is substantial, rapid, unprecedented change. Never before have we had anything quite like this. And this changes how we all buy products. It changes actually everything about the way we live, work, and do business, the way we want products and access to products and services, the way we engage with products and services, and certainly, if you're a generation being raised during this era, it influences a whole lot. It's actually technology, and the access to technology has become a primary driver for Generation Y. And the third reason is just demographic shifts. When the baby boomers came of age, they were the largest generation of that era, the largest generation in history, 78 million boomers. And they had influenced many consumer trends when they came of age. Well, now we are seeing a shift occur. Generation Y is primarily the children of baby boomers, but Generation Y is considerably larger. They're 80 million Americans. So right now, the vast majority of our consumer base and the vast majority of our executives and management level throughout every industry, with the exception of technology, is baby boomers. But by 2015, Generation Y will become the majority of the workforce. And this will be the first time this has happened in several decades. And again, that influences all kinds of things, not only the workforce and seeing how the composition of the U.S. workforce is changing, but it will influence government and politics and education, and it will most certainly influence consumerism. So, for us to fully understand Generation Y, what makes them tick and what influences their buying decisions, we kind of have to go back in history. We have to really fully understand how the generations differ from one another and how consumerism has changed in recent years. So let's start with those baby boomers, the ones that have been holding the purse strings for decades. Well, baby boomers were raised during a very wealthy, prosperous time in the United States. Notice here how everyone kind of looks the same. Everyone's wearing similar outfits, has similar haircuts, and everyone's wearing dark shoes. I'll get back to that in just a moment. But the baby boomers were raised to follow a very similar path as the generations that came before them. And before them, you would go to school, you would get a job, you would get married, you would have children. And most American households could only afford one television at this point in time, and everyone watched family friendly programming together. And you would get a job, and you would work in that job, sometimes for the same company, until you retired. Now, only recently have we seen some of that path be called into question and alter a little bit, but we know that generational values are based on what happens during your most influential years, and that's childhood and adolescence. So the behaviors and the values that are instilled in baby boomers are quite different from the generations that follow. And boom, definitely, there was a big change that occurred in 1965. Now, one of the best visuals I can show you to demonstrate this change is looking at the Beatles. The Beatles are one of my favorites. The tail end of the boomer generation came on the scene, introduced a little something called rock and roll. Notice once again here how everyone kind of looks, well, the same. And just 3 years later, in the height of the Generation X phase, just 3 years later, 1967, the Beatles look like this. So, what was happening? Well, major change was starting to happen, and this is very important. Anyone born 1964 or earlier was raised to value conformity. Anyone born 1965 and later was raised to value individuality. And this is very key when you're trying to market your product and service to the generations that follow the boomers. Now, some people blame this man because all of a sudden we had a childhood educator telling children, you are unique, you are special. Do what makes you happy. And as long as you're doing what makes you happy, maybe that means, well, divorce. And almost overnight, the parents of Generation X were getting divorced. The divorce rate skyrocketed to 40%. And Generation X started to raise themselves because now their parents were either both working, two-parent working households, or often single-parent households. But Generation X became the first generation of latchkey children. Now, what the heck does this have to do with consumerism? Well, a lot. Because when you're marketing to this generation, we're looking at a lot of independence. We're seeing this move towards individuality and independence. And this is just another way to demonstrate that movement away from what once was, this end of the era. In addition, this generation, Generation X, was the first to have never known job security. The late 1970s introduced years and years of massive layoffs, downsizing, merger. And in 1980, cable television arrived. That might not seem like a very big deal, but all of a sudden you have access to news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sometimes the news is good news, but most of the time it's bad news. Now, this generation is seeing the nation's leaders lie, fail to deliver on their promises. So, with divorce, with lack of job security, with media and seeing all the negative influences, we start to have this movement also towards skepticism, distrust. And this concept of trust is going to come up time and time again throughout today's presentation. But this is the roots of it. This is where we see distrust start to occur, and why trust is so very important when marketing products and services to the next generation. Also, with the dawn of cable television came the dawn of customization. We also saw the dawn of globalization. Instead of Woodstock, this generation was having Live Aid. But by and large, we saw a real move away from kind of that Beatle era and the boomer era towards tremendous rebellion. This fiercely independent, self-sufficient, we're not going to take it anymore generation. And just when you think you have Generation X figured out, well, boom, 1982 comes around, and between 1982 and 1995, we experienced another wave of tremendous change. And this is where our stars of today's presentation come on the scene. 1982 and 1995, Generation Y, also known as the Millennials, is born. And they too have some of the same influences. They too are seeing the nation's leaders lie and fail to deliver on their promises. They're actually seeing the fall of entire corporations due to unethical practices. And here comes that trust theme again. Plus, they start seeing a lot of violence close to home, from school shootings to September 11. And we saw the pendulum shift from very hands-off parenting with Generation X to extreme hands-on parenting with Generation Y, or helicopter parents, as some may call them. In fact, Generation Y is the most protected, supervised, provided for generation in history, and we are seeing some themes with how to market to them evolve out of that protection as children. This generation has been dubbed the trophy generation because they've always been rewarded for participation and not achievement. If you go out for the soccer team, everyone gets a trophy, win or lose. And therefore, this generation's walking into workplaces or walking into stores and places of business, and they're actually thinking, well, here I am. What do I get? What's my return on investment, whether I'm investing money or investing time? So that too is a prominent theme. And let's not overlook technology. I mean, we all know that this generation's been raised on technology, but do we really understand what that means? You know, on studies of basic needs, Generation Y always puts technology on the same level as oxygen and freedom. That's a pretty powerful message. That means that they can't even imagine life without it. That means if your product or service isn't utilizing technology in almost every capacity, you're not even speaking their language. You are alienating this generation. And they too have had a very rocky transition from college to career. They're feeling a little uncertain about their futures. So, in brief, we can see that from the boomer generation to the Xer generation to the Y generation, which encompasses about a 40 to 50 year time span, we can really boil it down to one thing: change. Tremendous, rapid, unprecedented change. These are fascinating times we're living in right now because we're seeing more change than any other time in history. And that shapes our decisions, it shapes our values, and it shapes consumerism. So we've identified in the paper, and I'm going to delve into these areas in a little bit greater detail here, but we've identified 4 key trends or themes as it pertains to Generation Y's buying habits. Now you've seen throughout the course of time how we've evolved and how we are indeed at the end of an era as it pertains to consumerism. So what's happening, what's evolving in its place? Well, the first thing is this concept of Recession Nista. Now, as I mentioned, we are recovering from the worst recession our country has seen in 70 years. So Generation Y naturally, and Generation Y is pretty broke, you know, when we look at student and credit card debt, they're pretty broke compared to other generations as other generations were coming of age. So Generation Y isn't really behaving like their baby boomer parents in this regard. They're actually behaving a little bit more like their grandparents who came of age during the Great Depression or immediately following the Great Depression. But the difference is Generation Y wants to look fabulous and trendy. So they're very informed shoppers. They want to find a good deal. They're on a tight budget, but they still want to be fashionable and trendy. That means they're looking for very inexpensive versions of the items they need and durable versions of items that they need and want. And this influences their buying behaviors. So it's not just about being inexpensive. Let's check out this video. This is from 1990, a TJ Maxx commercial.
Our women suit buyers have done it again. Another amazing TJ Maxx super buy. Fall career suits just $49.99. This terrific selection of great-looking styles and fabrics sold previously at department stores for much, much more. The TJ Maxx Career Suit Super Buy, happening right now. So don't be late, because at $49.99, these suits won't be waiting long. TJ Maxx.
Okay, so the prominent theme here is $49.99 and super buy. In other words, we're kind of going with the message that it's cheap. Well, here's a TJ Maxx commercial from this year, and let's just see how the messages differ. Oops, gotta, uh-oh. One moment, we have to go back. We somehow missed the video. Okay, here we go. So a few things from this video. First of all, Maxinista. So they're kind of playing on words from Recession Nista, and they use Fashionista. So very similar to the Recessionista movement. But also, they're really focused not on that it's so affordable. Yes, your friends are on a budget, but they're focusing on relationships. They're making it fun, and it's very trendy. So again, you can be fashionable within a budget. So very different messages. Okay, so you got a sneak peek of this earlier, but Kmart for years has brought in celebrity endorsers, and for a long time it was Jaclyn Smith and her collection. And you'll see here it's tailored towards a little bit older woman, not a Gen Y, not the youngest counterpart of the consumer base. But Kmart, again, a home isn't the only thing you should look for that should look festive for the holidays. But Kmart today is still using that celebrity endorser, but wow, what a difference. They're going for a younger audience, and they're also going for, get ready, get set, get your sexy on. You don't really think of Kmart as being sexy, but Kmart is trying to push that recessionista movement of being very fashionable, very trendy, and still doing it within a budget. In fact, in this ad, you will see it says, work what you got. And that's kind of a play on words. You can say work what you got, meaning you have clothes that'll, fit your particular style or body type. Or you can also say, well, work what you got, work with what you've got. In other words, we understand you're on a budget and you can still look sexy and trendy on a shoestring budget. So very interesting. Zipcar has emerged as well as some other products and services because we're actually seeing that when you're working on a budget, within a budget, maybe you can't own everything, and that includes a car. Fascinating thing is the automobile industry is seeing one of the worst declines in history because Generation Y, unlike other generations, isn't graduating from high school or graduating from college and wanting to right away get a car. Maybe they can't afford it. Maybe they want to be more environmentally focused and green. But whatever the case, they're actually thinking about borrowing and car sharing and renting. And we're seeing this with other things from cars to purses. but it's the idea that maybe ownership isn't everything to Generation Y. And that, again, kind of marks the end of an era. Baby boomers wanted to own all kinds of things. Again, they were raised to aspire for the American dream. And that included a great car, a big house with a white picket fence, and the vacation home, and the vacation boat and RV, and the stocks, and the jewelry. All of those things which Gen Y doesn't really see value in, and they aren't buying. So, where do they see value? Well, technology. Technology is everything to them. Access to technology means a lot. And therefore, in addition to Recession Nistas, we also see the emergence of digital natives, which is our second out of four themes. Now, digital natives simply means that, Generation Y is really kind of wired, literally. They are addicted to Wi Fi, as some people would say. Wi Fi is their drug. So they tend to be the early adapters of technology. They own multiple devices. They consider technology, again, remember, on the same level as oxygen and freedom. So it truly is a basic need, it's a necessity. And just think about how technology as a movement, is infiltrated all of our lives. Every 60 seconds, technology, something is happening. Actually, a lot is happening via technology. But Generation Y is the one that's really pushing for access to more and more technology. And think about how it's changed our lives, looking at the announcement of the Pope in 2005. And 7 years later, this year, this is what the audience looked like. We're really moving towards more and more technology. We're not going backwards, ladies and gentlemen. We're only going forwards. When technology came on the scene, there were a lot of services for buying products online, and it wasn't long after that that you could sell products online. And now we're actually seeing that more and more sites like Groupon and Living Social and other sites where you actually buy products online and it's within a certain period of time. So, interestingly enough, it's not only about getting a great deal, but it's also a little competitive. There's a little gaming element to it. You only have a certain amount of time. Are you going to buy that product or not? It's a little bit of a pressure cooker. And Generation Y likes that instant gratification, likes the speed of the purchase. And as a result, we've seen lots of new sites pop up. Here are just a few of them that offer limited time offer on a particular product or service. For example, Tea Fury. You get a certain type of t-shirt. It's only available for a day at a certain great price, but it's gone tomorrow. So again, that speed element, instant gratification. We love, 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 love a good deal. So that reflects back to the Recession Nista movement. And you add in technology, and it's the digital native movement. The digital native movement can also go a step further because we're also seeing with sites like Fab, as it mentions here, millions of people use this to discover products at great prices and to connect with designers and share their favorite designs. So now we're seeing that it's not just about selling. Oh, goodness, no, it's not just about selling. It's really so much more. It's really about building a relationship and doing so via technology. And Gen Y loves the idea of being able to research what they're buying. They like to weigh in on what they like and what they don't like. And so customer reviews are becoming more and more popular. TripAdvisor, of course, very popular. And think about what the TripAdvisor tagline is: get the truth, then go. Remember, I said that trust and honesty and ethical, that concept of trust is really, really important to younger generations. And this is a great example of it. Trust is everything, everything. If they don't trust your brand, if they don't trust your company, if they don't trust the person that they're working with, they will disengage without a doubt. So let's check out. Remember these guys? Remember this ad campaign? Oh, it was huge. And it's kind of funny because Apple, the Macs, actually positioned the PC as kind of the boomer, all buttoned up in the suit and a little bit older, maybe a little outdated, and Mac is the laid back guy, very casual and hip. But let's check out this ad campaign.
Hello, I'm a Mac. And I'm a PC. Hey, Mac, did you hear the good news? Windows 7 is out, and it's not going to have any of the problems my last operating system had. Trust me. I feel like I've heard this before, PC. What? Windows Vista's here, and it's not going to have any of the problems that Windows XP had. It's not going to have any of the problems that Windows ME had. It's not going to have any of the problems that Windows 98 had. It's not going to have any of the problems Windows 95 had. It's not going to have any of the problems Windows 2 had. Trust me. This time it's going to be different. Trust me.
So, as you can see, Mac is building upon that trust and using it to their advantage in their ad campaign. The other thing we see with digital natives is that they really want customization. And yes, indeed, Mac is a great example of customization too. And yes, you can customize your iPods and your music and your Apple TV and all of that. But you can also customize just about everything today, from your gum to your wardrobe to your soda and pretty soon your TV advertising. And it's really just a movement to say younger generations, especially Generation Y, has been raised with customization. They expect it. Here's a great quote. They want the world their way and they want it now. There's that instant gratification. They have grown up in a texted or fed exit why wait world. They don't expect to wait. They expect unlimited choices. Choices, choices. But it's not just in retail. You can sell a completely other product and still provide choice.
So, what happens if I'm in an accident and need to get my car fixed? Progressive makes it easy because we give you choices. You can pick where to get your car fixed. We can cut you a check. Or at our service center, we take care of everything for you. Oh, so many choices. Take your time at the service center. Okay, giving you choices. Now that's progressive. Call or click today.
Okay, so a funny take on customization and choices, but it gets the message across nonetheless. And remembering that that's a value with the generation that's coming up. Here's an interesting approach. Any idea what this is an advertisement for? Here's to life, the future, friendship, and being frank. There's that trust metaphor again, right? We're talking about being frank, being honest, being trustworthy. Well, what is frank? You wouldn't guess it from this ad. Can you figure it out from this one?
You're not invisible. How could you be? Look at your thumbprint. Hair. Feet. The way you think. Feel. Speak. Dress. Smell. There's no one like you. So be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Frank by OCBC.
Well, you might have a hint here from this last frame, but really you wouldn't know. It's not blatantly obvious, that's for sure. But Frank is actually a bank based in Singapore. We wrote a little bit about it in our report. But Frank uses everything that Generation Y loves. They love this trustworthy, very customized, very individual approach to marketing and advertising and consumerism. So Frank has done an exceptional job of tapping into what Generation Y wants. Now, another thing to keep in mind that Generation Y really values is social awareness. They love a good cause, and that is something that they do have in common with their baby boomer parents. Remember that baby boomers were raised wanting to, stop the war, make love, not war, and make the world a better place and all that, and peace, peace, peace. Well, Generation Y has also adopted a cause, and they're really drawn to causes that have to do with saving the earth. in some capacity. We see this with Coca-Cola and their whole Protect the Polar Bears, Arctic Home, that campaign, and really when you look at it, more than 85%, so that's almost everybody within Generation Y, link commitment to a cause to their purchasing decisions. That is significant. So if you don't have a cause, you might want to think about getting one, because Generation Y is inspired knowing they can buy something and make a difference. Think about Tom's Shoes, which came up with the idea that if you buy a pair of shoes, they will donate a pair of shoes to a child in need. It's been hugely successful. So Generation Y loves a good cause. Check out this campaign. It's bigger than coffee. It's way bigger than coffee. In fact, Starbucks in this video says if you're buying fair trade coffee, you're helping a farmer save his farm, you're helping a single mother provide health care for her children, you're even building schools. So just by buying a cup of coffee, you're helping to save the world and make it a better place. Generation Y loves that. If you're familiar with Diesel, Diesel is a fashion company, and I think this ad campaign is really interesting. I think at first glance you wouldn't really know what it was, but Diesel did an entire ad campaign of a post-global warming world. So they featured different cities and what they would look like if global warming advanced. And so you'd see cities underwater. In this example, you're seeing Paris surrounded by jungle. And in the upper corner of your screen, you're seeing global warming ready. So Diesel took it upon themselves to say, we're going to be very fashionable, yes, but we're also going to kind of take on the global warming campaign and really make our consumers think about what's happening. And here's what they have to say about global warming. This is the cause of our lifetime and the fight of our generation. It's not just trendy. Green is the new black. So Diesel has taken on a cause that's near and dear to Gen Y's heart. So digital natives also have to be thinking about relationship building. And of course, that means relationship building through social media. As I mentioned, it's not about sales. It's about building relationships, building trust. And don't overlook this. Facebook, Twitter, social commerce sales are expected to hit 14 billion. That's billion with a B by 2015. So don't dismiss social media as just kind of a conversational, silly site. It's actually generating tremendous sales for advertisers. As we look at this particular graphic, you will see the cycle. Social commerce starts with someone discovering an event on Eventbrite. Then she shares it with her friends via Facebook and Twitter. Then she Her friends see her post and click on the event, and then they buy tickets, and then they share the event with more friends via Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and email. And the cycle continues and continues. In other words, this grassroots marketing, social commerce, relationship building focused marketing tends to spread like wildfire. It's very effective marketing. Okay, so we've talked about recessionistas and we've talked about digital natives. Up next is migrators. Now, this is kind of a humorous thing, but it's very true. We're actually seeing the literal movement or migration away from influences of childhood. Generation Y is saying, you know what? We don't want anything to do with our childhood. We want to be different. We want to do the things that we did not do or did not have growing up. So, as I mentioned, Generation Y is the most protected, supervised, provided for generation in history, from car seats to bike helmets to never eating in a cafeteria that serves peanut butter. Here's a couple Gen Ys buckled in for the ride as children, and here are Gen Ys now. We're seeing this movement, which is categorized as safety to adventure. So they were raised very protected, and now it's all about the adventure, baby. And there are certain brands that are capitalizing on this movement. All right, safety to adventure. Red Bull is all about it. All right, the next kind of mini phase within migration is this idea of isolation. You know, Generation Y, their baby boomer parents moved out to the burbs, and they were raised on cul-de-sacs and in quiet neighborhoods and good schools. Well, now they're moving isolated to connected. Generation Y can't get enough teamwork. They can't get enough collaboration. They love their coffee shops and working together and being in close community with one another. The other thing we're seeing is a movement from inconvenience. I mean, if you're living out in the burbs, you're commuting into the city. So this movement, inconvenience to convenience. Generation Y values their time a lot. A lot. So they say, we're not going to waste our time. It's that instant gratification generation, remember? So they're saying, we're not going to waste time sitting in a car commuting. We want to walk to work. We want to bike to work. We want to live in the city, which is also a very interesting migratory theme. Other generations have moved out of the city. Boomers did, Generation X did. Generation Y is saying, no, we want to live in the city. And this, as a result, we're seeing a lot of urban redevelopment and housing projects. But this movement from inconvenience to absolute convenience. And who better to market that than Apple? So I guess there isn't much you can't do on an iPhone. It's the ultimate inconvenience. And guess who loves their iPhones? Generation Y. Okay, so the fourth movement or theme we've seen in consumerism is the trophy kid movement. And of course, as I mentioned previously, Generation Y has always been rewarded for participation, not achievement. They love getting something in return for their investment, whether it's time or a financial investment. They want a return on that investment. They crave affirmation, they crave positive reinforcement, they crave structure. Like it or not, this is Generation Y's viewpoint of the universe. It's all about me. It's always been about me. I've been raised as a peer in my household. I am part of the largest generation in history. I've always been given rewards. It's all about me, 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 me. Sound familiar? Yes, the boomers kind of had that same mantra. And as the children of boomers, we're seeing some of those same themes pop up with Generation Y. Let's check out what our friends at Zipcar have done.
Happy Valentine's Day from Zipcar. Have a good one. Thanks for being a member. It's from Zipcar. Happy Valentine's Day, ladies. Yes.
We love you. We love you so much. We're going to deliver flowers to you and send you notes of thanks. We are going to appreciate you. We recognize that you are spending your time with Zipcar, and we're going to show you we appreciate that. So, recognition just for utilizing our product or service, very important to Generation Y. And as a result, we're seeing lots of apps pop up from Shopkick to Belly that you can earn rewards or points or something just for shopping or just for eating at a certain place, and that leads to rewards that goes towards free food and free stuff or discounts on food and discounts on stuff. So you're getting rewarded just for eating and shopping. But I do want to point out that you must, whatever you do with rewards, even though this is the trophy kid generation, they're also extremely marketing savvy, very, very smart. You need to make sure that whatever you do, it's authentic, that it's not fluffy or fake. They want to know it's real. Just think about what Pepsi has been doing. They're actually pulling back the curtain and showing all the nutrition and ingredient information for all of their products. Generation Y really appreciates this honesty and they trust it, and trust is everything. So you may be asking yourself, really, Gen Y, we have to entrust our future to this really young generation? They're kind of confusing. They're kind of doing things so differently from what any other generation and consumer base has done, and we have a lot to figure out. Well, you do have a lot to figure out. That's true. And I hope this webinar helped to provide a great guide for what you need to do to reach this emerging market. And I also hope you understand that there's tremendous potential within this market who are already in their young lives spending $2 billion annually. And they're the largest generation in history, and they're going to influence a whole heck of a lot of change. So if you want them to be buying your product and service and to be ambassadors of your brand, you need to get out there and be relevant to Generation Y, also known as the millennials. It will lead to many, many great opportunities for your company. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our webinar today. Get out there and get Gen Y to buy. I'm Sarah Sladek with XYZ University. If you have any questions, my contact information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I wish you luck and I thank you for tuning in today. Until we meet again, xyzuniversity.com. Thanks very much.